everyone, and welcome to week 5 of the Ashtanga beginners course. Today we're going to look at the back bending sequence and then the closing, or part of the closing sequence. So you're going to practice up until Trikonasana B, so 5 Surya Namaskar A's, 5B. Then Padangusthasana, forward bend with the toes, Padahastasana, hands underneath the feet, and then triangle A and triangle B. And then you're going to do these back bends. Now the back bends is a separate part, so basically you do your sequence and then you always do your back bending bit and then you always do your closing bit. And the back bending bit is particularly important because we spend most of our day forward bending. That's not a great example, but that's what we tend to do. And so back bends really help to open the front of the body and strengthen the back of the body. Now I am going to work with some prep for back bends, which is not strictly in the sequence, but I think for most people it's useful to open the body a little bit before coming into stronger back bends. And particularly after you've worked in the primary series, where you'll probably notice over time that it's a lot of forward bending, but with a straight spine, so not hunched forward bending. So when I do primary, I always do these preps before I do my back bends. If I do the intermediate series, which has more back bends in it, I don't have to do them. So if you, for example, got an amazing back bend and you don't feel you need any of this, then you can just ignore it. So this is just probably useful for most people. Now we're going to focus on opening the front of the chest and the shoulders, and then we're also going to, or the first thing we're actually going to do is open the hip flexors, so the muscles at the front of the hips. Now ideally you'll have a brick and possibly a block. Now I know it's not everyone has these tools. I am lending them out so people can pick them up from the front of my garden. If that's what you want to do, just email me and I'll arrange to leave it out for you. But if you've got something that can act as a brick, but it has to be really stable for what we're doing, so it can't be flimsy. Blocks a little bit easier. We tend to sit on this, so it could be a firm cushion, for example. So presuming you have these tools, I'd like you to come and lie down. Make sure that you can reach your brick and block or whatever you're using. We're going to come initially into a supported bridge. So the feet are perfectly straight. Make sure you can see that. Hip width apart. And then see if you can bring your feet really close towards the body and then literally lift the bum and scoot yourself closer to your feet. Now there's a couple of you, or there's one person I know in this group who, if you've got long legs, so she's got really long legs, you actually want to keep a slightly wider stance, otherwise the knees tend to shoot too far forwards. But for most people, trying to shorten the stance as much as possible, and then ever so slightly turning the heels out, so there's a tendency for the toes to go out and the heels in, and by slightly turning the heels out, you're probably bringing the feet into a perfect neutral position. And then you're going to slowly uncurl the spine vertebra by vertebra, come up as high as you can, and then you're going to place the brick underneath the sacrum. Now it can be sideways, flat, or if you're more flexible, in an upright position. Now it's on the sacrum, not the lower back. Try and keep the heels out, and then see if you can draw the chest really close towards the chin. So find your nice back bend, maybe stay here for a few breaths. And then I'd like you just to bend the left knee towards the chest and try and straighten the right leg along the mat. So see if you can get the top of the right toe to touch the floor. So just to make your way, you shouldn't turn your head. I'm turning my head because I can't help but I want to talk to you. But ideally you shouldn't turn your head at all in this position. And then see if you can maybe hover that right big toe off the mat. So you're literally letting that right leg hang. So we're aiming for a stretch across the right hip flexor. If it's comfortable, you can draw that left knee a little bit closer. So you're going to stay here for 10 deep breaths. Let's imagine we've done 9 and 10. And then I'd like you just to see if you can draw that right leg back, left leg back, and come onto the top of the left foot. I'll just stay here for a few breaths. You can tuck the toes under if you get cramps. I've just got a little bit of a cramp. Then maybe come onto the top of the foot again. So imagine I've done 8, 9, 10. Good. Then I'm going to bring the left foot down, right foot down, and then I'm going to extend the right leg up, knee into chest, extend the left leg away. The toe maybe just hovering off the mat, maybe holding onto the right leg with one or both hands. So you can leave one hand on the floor if that makes you feel a little bit more secure. So stretching the left hip flexors. Good. Imagine I've done 8 breaths, 9, 10, then folding the right leg back. So get hold of the top of the foot and scoot the leg back. And stay here and breathe. So going a little bit more deeply into those right hip flexors. Good. And imagine I've done 8, 9, 10. Good. Bring the right foot down and then see if you can extend the right leg as well and reach the arms over the head. So this is a great way to stretch the whole of the front of the body. And stay here for 10 breaths. Imagine I've done 8, 9, 10. Then walk your feet back. Release your arms by the sides. Push through your feet, lift the sacrum, and then move the block to one side as you slowly peel the spine back down vertebra by vertebra. And then rather than drawing the knees into the chest into a complete forward bend, see if you can just draw your navel in towards the spine and lower your back into the mat. So you're engaging the core to lengthen the lower back, but you're not drawing the knees in so much because we're going to continue to open the front of the body. Then roll to one side, come all the way up. So now we're going to focus on the upper back. Now for this, ideally you have a brick and you might need a block. So I'm going to offer you 2 variations of this upper back bend. The first one is to have the block sideways, and then the brick sideways and the block comes behind. The block is really where your head will go, so you might have to move it a little bit. Now you're going to come back, and it's quite useful to get hold of the brick. You want the brick to come into the upper back. So I'm going down, I realise it's too low, so I'm going to move it a little bit further away. So it comes into the upper back. Good. And then the head rests on the block. And then with your arms, if you can, taking the arms over the head, holding on to the opposite elbow. So again, don't move your head, so just look up. Good. And then see if you can just stay here and breathe. If you're holding on to the opposite elbows after a while, see if you can hold on to the other elbow. So just working to open the upper back, front of the chest and the shoulders. Now this is variation 1. To come out, tuck the chin in and then slowly come up. Now if that feels fairly easy, you could bring the brick into an upright position. Now this is quite hard and it does help to sit on the block. It makes it a little bit easier to get up and over. I'd highly recommend you use a block or cushion initially. So then you're going to come back again, hold the brick so that when you come back you know it's in the right place. It's right in the middle of the upper back. So scoot it around a little bit, and this time you're going to interlace the fingers and rest the head into the palms and stay here and breathe. If anyone feels really comfortable, you can release the hands and stretch the arms up and over. So again, at least 10 breaths. Imagine I've done 8, 9, 10. Releasing the arms by the sides. Now with the head that far back, it's better to push with the hands first and then take the head up when your spine is in an upright position. So we've opened the hip flexors in the upper back, and now we're going to work towards wheel pose, which is essentially the back bend that you're supposed to do. I don't want you to worry too much about whether you can or can't do wheel pose. We're going to work it in stages, so I want you to work wherever you are. Now I use a wedge to help my wrists, so my wrists are fine now, but I did sort of get sore wrists at one point, so I've continued to use that support to help protect my wrists. So coming to lie down with the knees bent, again trying to shorten the distance as much as you can between the feet and the body. And then all you're going to do is bring your hands by the side of the head. So if you're like me, you always have to get your hair out of the way. So I'm going to use my wedge. Now, there's two choices. You can have the fingertips pointing towards the shoulders, or you can have them turned outwards. Having them turned out to the side has the advantage of, you probably saw that it helps bring the elbows in. And I'm just going to quickly explain that. That action of keeping the elbows in keeps you in your serratus and your latissimus dorsi. So when the elbows go out, what tends to happen is you lose the connection into those muscles which are vital for helping to lift up, so giving you that shoulder support, and the shoulders start hunching up towards the ears. So for many people, or quite a few people, this will be stage one, the ability to just bring the elbows in. So the other advantage of having the hands slightly out to the side is that it's sometimes a little bit nicer for the wrists, but it's up to you. I have them somewhere in between as I come up to make sure my elbows stay in, and then when I'm up I tend to turn them so the fingertips point towards my shoulders. So the first stage would be just to be able to come into this position. So see how my hands are sort of slightly to the side, not all the way to the side. And then the second stage would be to tuck the tailbone under and just lift the hips. And you can, this could be it for you, or maybe you can come onto the crown of the head. And then for anyone who can, you can come all the way up. Now I normally come onto my toes so I can find a little bit more space for my lower back. Push myself forward and then bring my heels down. Again, making sure the heels are slightly turned out, toes in, stay for at least 5 breaths. And then when you come down, tuck the chin in, bend the knees, come all the way down, and you would repeat that 3 times. So have another go. So don't be discouraged if you are working with just bringing the hands in, maybe lifting the pelvis. Just keep doing it. So over time, as you gain flexibility and strength, you can then maybe lift onto the crown of the head, and you continue to do that. Then maybe start lifting up. Once you're past a certain point and you're all the way up, it's actually a lot easier. It's that initial push up that feels really hard. Normally once you're up it's fine, but with wheel pose it requires a lot of patience, and it's better to work it in stages and continue the practice than to try too hard to do something that's out of your reach and then feel discouraged and give up. So just this idea of bite size, bit by bit. Unless you've got a particular problem in your spine or your hips, I can guarantee you will eventually come all the way up if you keep at it. So after your back bends, there would actually be a whole sequence where you do shoulder stand, plough pose, a couple of variations of that, and then fish pose, headstand, and then you come into this cross-legged seated position, which is what we're going to work with. So we're basically working the back end of the closing sequence, and that's because to be able to do the inversions, we need to do some more work in the sequence. So for your seated bit at the back, you can either just be in a cross-legged position, and remember if your hips or your knees are really high, you can always sit on a block. Sometimes that allows the knees to come down a little bit. So cross-legged is great. If you can, so eventually it'll be a full lotus, see if you can maybe come into half lotus. So one foot comes in, the other foot underneath. Or if you can come into half lotus then come into full lotus. Now wherever you are, take the arms behind, get one hand to hold the opposite wrist. I try to alternate every day, and then fold forward. So you're going to stay here for 10. So imagine I've done 8, 9, 10. Inhale, come up. Then take the hands behind, come onto the fingertips and lift the chest, look to the tip of the nose. So you're going to stay here again for 10. Imagine I've done 8, 9, 10. And then bringing the fingers in Jim Mudra, so index and thumb touching, so linking the universal with the individual to remind us that everything's interconnected. And then releasing the other 3 fingers out to the sides, chest lifted. Again, looking to the tip of the nose for 10 breaths. 9, 10. And then the last bit is a lift. Now, it's an easier lift if you've got lotus, and what tends to happen if the legs are crossed is you might just lift your bum. And also, if you've got shortish arms like me, it can help to come onto your fists. But if you've got long arms, you can just have your hands flat and then see if you can lift. And again, you would stay here for 10. So imagine I've done 8, 9, 10. Good. And then to release from this, you would actually do one more vinyasa. So vinyasa just means breath to movement, and it sort of has the same pattern most of the time in Ashtanga. Now if you're cross-legged, you can just release. If you're in lotus, you can try a little lift. So coming onto the tops of the knees, bringing the hands down with the fingertips slightly turned outwards, and then you're going to bend the elbows, bring the elbows onto the rib cage, lift the knees, and then flick the legs back. So wherever you are, you're going to come into Chaturanga. Exhale here, inhale, up dog, exhale, down dog. And then you're going to inhale, step or jump the feet forwards, looking forwards. Exhale, head in. Inhale, come up. And then exhale here. Inhale, stretch the arms up. I know you can't see my head. Exhale, fold forwards. Inhale, half lift. Normally we start to step back a little bit more towards the end. Maybe knees down. Maybe keep things a little bit softer in your last vinyasa. Exhale, down dog, and then inhale to jump through, stretch the legs out in front, roll down, and then lie in Shavasana. And it's recommended that you stay in Shavasana for about 5 minutes. If you want longer, that's fine. If it's a little bit shorter, that's fine, but try not to leave out Shavasana. So Shavasana, your aim is to be still really focused, so you're not starting to plan the rest of the day. Focusing exercises that you can use are counting the breath backwards, so we usually use a fraction of the number 108, so it could be 108, 107, 106, or it could be 54, so a fraction of that, or 27. So breathing in for 27, breathing out for 27, breathing in for 26, breathing out for 26. Now obviously you might have your own ways of keeping your focus, that's fine, anything is fine. You can just be completely present, notice everything about the moment you're in, and of course you can also just be focusing on the breath. So there's lots of different ways. And the body should be really comfortable. So I just quickly want to just show you a way to make Shavasana a little bit more comfortable. One way to do that is to briefly come onto the soles of the feet, lift the pelvis, and then move the pelvis closer to the feet. So essentially you're giving the lower back more space. and then taking the arms, the legs wide, let the feet flop out to the side. With the arms, try and rotate the arms at the shoulders. So the arms rotate at the lower arms on their own. So there's rotation here as at the shoulders moving. But I want you to literally roll the arms outwards at the shoulders, take the arms wide. So you've got a little bit more space across the front of the chest and the shoulders. Chin slightly tucked in. Eyes closed. And obviously you can wear extra clothes, socks, blanket, eye pillow. Namaste, thank you, and I'll see you all on Friday at 12:30.